Okay, so I've told you that Shakespeare was not a black woman and not a woman at all and was just some middle-class white boy from Stratford-upon-Avon. And we've talked about how that conspiracy theory is just inane. But a bunch of you nailed that million-dollar question in my comment section, which is, why would anybody think that in the first place? Hi, my name is Kaylee, I'm a Shakespeare academic, and unfortunately the answer is bigotry. As per usual, it's classism, straight up. When someone tells you that they think Shakespeare wasn't Shakespeare, they will make every single argument under the sun, and it will be because he says this in this play, he says this in this play, he says this in this play, okay? First of all, you need to understand where this conspiracy theory comes from. We don't start seeing it until about 200 years after Shakespeare's death. Thank you, Victorians. And when we do, it's when Shakespeare rises to that level of high art and sophistication within society, and within English upper echelon society particularly. People don't read the plays and think, this must have been written by a woman. The Victorians were not exactly that forward thinking. The conspiracy comes from people looking at the plays and thinking that they are too good and have too high of a cultural status to have been written by a middle class person. Americans think about classism very differently. In England, class is blood, okay? The era in which Shakespeare lived was one of the first times in English history that you could have class mobility at all. And Shakespeare actually during his lifetime was evidence of this because he applied for a coat of arms and was granted one, due to the notoriety he gained as a playwright, because he was so well documented. However, he was born untitled, okay? He did not have a college education. And to the Victorians, that was enough. That was enough to question his identity because he was so important to them. They start with plugging in people like Edmund de Vere, or Kit Marlowe faked his death and then wrote underneath Shakespeare's pseudonym, or Elizabeth I was Shakespeare, as if the woman would have had time. The question becomes, Shakespeare couldn't have been Shakespeare, therefore, what was his motivation, whoever it was, for using a pen name? Do you understand? Which I need to emphasize the ridiculousness of coming up with this question at all, because that emphasizes how classist it is. Shakespeare is intensely well documented in both London and in Stratford-upon-Avon, which, by the way, I had someone trying to argue with me in my comment section that Stratford-upon-Avon is only pronounced Stratford-upon-Avon. Not true. People who live in Stratford-upon-Avon use both pronunciations. English people do. Guess how I know? That's where I got my master's degree in Shakespeare. English people literally freak out when they hear somebody without an English accent talking about Shakespeare, particularly an American accent, but like, hey, when you forcibly export your culture to the Americas, mind you, you guys are the reason I'm here. I'm Irish. You guys are literally the reason I'm here. You don't get to turn around and gatekeep later, dude. Sorry. So, hi, if you speak the English language, can understand me, or have been affected or touched at all by English colonialism, Shakespeare is your heritage too, and don't let an English motherfucker tell you otherwise. Anyway, he's documented in multiple places. We have more business deals from him than we have from most people of the era. Most of the documents in London burned down in 1666, right? But Shakespeare had other documents in Stratford. Like, this keeps glitching and deleting my clips. If you would like to look at the tip jar in my VIO, I am saving up for a new computer that I desperately need so I can make YouTube videos and podcasts and stuff because, oh my god, this thing. Anyway, like, seriously, so well documented. The point is, so well documented. Couple of other things about this. People will point to the plays and say, well, this female character is so well written, this female character feels so real, therefore, oh my gosh, didn't a woman write these plays? But no, my guess is that Shakespeare probably wrote women well because he knew some, and maybe hung out with them. Maybe saw them as people, even. But like, in all seriousness, when you treat men like they are a separate species that simply cannot understand women, you are upholding the patriarchy. The differences between men and women in us as animals is minute, minuscule, much smaller than like most other animals. Men are people and women are people, which means that men are capable of understanding women because they are both, guess what? People. They choose not to. It's not that men are incapable of seeing women as people and therefore writing women well. It is that they are bigots. Sometimes people ask me if I get so frustrated with men because my dad sucks. No, my dad is awesome. My dad actually is a screenwriter who writes fantastic women and has his whole life. It's how I know how stupid and lazy you guys are. Like, I've watched him do that his whole life and it was so easy. He cooked, he cleaned, he took care of us, he braided our hair, and he treated women like people. And it like was not hard. You also can't dig around in a historical figure's art and like make great grandiose claims about who they were as a human person or what they thought about things, particularly when that art is what they used to pay their bills and also was written for a patron who wanted certain things, and then later on that patron was literally the king of his country. Arguably the only thing we can draw conclusions about Shakespeare's life from are maybe the sonnets, and even then it's a little bit of a stretch. And then we can like look at patterns and themes in his work and we can analyze them, and that is incredible and awesome, and we can make guesses, and we can make educated guesses, and we can make reasonable guesses. but that's what they are. You can absolutely do literary analysis, by the way. Like, when you're looking into the work and you're looking for hints about the author and stuff, you're essentially doing literary analysis because we can't make conclusions about, like, that's different than history. Academics who work in the humanities work in a level of uncertainty that a lot of people, I don't think, are quite comfortable with yet. I honestly have so much I could say about this, but this app keeps glitching and it is really pissing me off. So we'll leave it here. I think you should question everything. I actually have no problem with the fact that Shakespeare's identity was questioned, despite the fact that I have a little bit of a problem with how that question was produced. However, if the question had been asked, we had looked at the historical evidence and gone, hey, resounding conclusion, the guy existed, that would have been the end of it. However, that myth has persisted for 200 years. And when we're asking why it came about in the first place, we also need to ask why we keep believing it. Because the inability to face the fact that he just was really smart and wrote a lot of plays is prejudiced. When you are questioning somebody's ability or talent or intelligence based around circumstances of their birth, you know, that framework is still what keeps people of color and queer people and women and underprivileged people out of these academic spaces where we talk about Shakespeare today. I know that a lot of us are baby intersectional, okay? But that's not just, you're gonna have to catch up pretty quickly if you're here, okay? So I know that it might sound counterintuitive for you, for me to say claiming Shakespeare was a black woman is actually fundamentally bigoted. I know that sounds confusing, but the reason that sounds confusing is because you haven't been exercising your brain cells enough, so let's practice. We are too comfortable in objective truth, okay? Cameras and recording equipment have only been around for like 100 years. When you are looking to something else or someone else to tell you what is true or what is good or what is moral, you are outsourcing your intelligence, your humanity. You should be able to look at a set of facts or a set of evidence and draw a conclusion by yourself and feel confident in it. You should, as a grown adult, be able to look at information that is not like high-level specialty in a field, right? Be able to look at a grouping of information, draw a conclusion, and feel confident in it without having to look at somebody else to outsource your information. If you don't have enough information, you should be able to go and find the other information with your skills as an adult. You should not need a content creator or a parent or a partner or a friend or anyone in your life telling you what is right and wrong. Because that gives you the opening to be victimized too, you know? That makes you extremely prone to falling for propaganda. And keep asking why. Why are they telling it to me in this way? Why are they telling this to me now? Why are they asking this question? Why are they procuring this information in the first place? Why are they able to get this information in the first place? I am no longer talking about William Shakespeare, except for in the ways in which I am always talking about William Shakespeare. I'm always talking about William Shakespeare. And yeah, like I said, tip jar and BIO. I need a new laptop so bad. Mine just doesn't work anymore, and I'm a writer and a content creator. Oh no. If you have learned anything from my content, if you've shared my content, I'd really appreciate it. And also, I will answer any question sent via tip jar as well. I have a couple more of those coming up later today. Anyway, yeah, thank you for being here. And please keep questioning things.